Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 94. The Hillbilly Weatherman, Adam Evans, Viral Weathercaster, and Big Buck Deer Hunter. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Scott Laseth of The Sporting Chef on Sportsman Channel, and I want you to check out Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. It is by far my favorite podcast on iTunes.
Hi, this is Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline. You're listening to my favorite hunting podcast ever, Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
G'day, mates. This is Zach Shaggy Slattery from Adelaide, Australia, and I'm Williams & Co. Bow Hunting and Fishing. You're listening to my favorite hunting podcast on the internet, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. Speaking of big deer hunters from Ohio, we have the Buckeye Master, Dusty Phillips. What's happened, Dusty?
Oh, just another day in paradise. Super excited to be on the mic today, and man, I'm looking forward to an awesome guest. By the way, who we have on the show today, Jay?
If you haven't heard of this person, Dusty, you're either living in a cave somewhere, or where you live, not a single flake of snow fell all winter long.
No kidding. Why do you say that?
Take a guess. Who's the most viral weatherman you've known this past winter?
Don't say no more. It's the Hillbilly Weatherman.
That's it, Adam Evans.
No kidding.
Joining us from my home state of New Hampshire, just up the road, actually.
Wow. And you said that you had a special guest in the studio. So does that tell me that Adam's in the house?
That is correct. Not only is he from New Hampshire, and I was able to successfully coerce him to the Big Buck Studios to actually record the show live in the studio instead of by Skype.
No kidding. So Adam's live in the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast studio with you.
I'm looking at him right now.
No kidding. Excellent. Hey, before we get started with the show, Jay, there's one thing I wanted to mention to everybody out there that might be an opportunity for them to advertise with us.
Advertise with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that new thing we're doing.
Yeah, we just got hot off the press, the media package.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. The deal is that now this is the first announcement we've had on this, and I haven't even posted it on Facebook. And keep in mind, we have 150,000 followers on Facebook, and we know a lot of people and manufacturers of products in the industry. So if you would like to get in now, before the slots fill up for the next 3 months, you can go check out our media package at www.bigbuckregistry.com/sponsor. And it has it all laid out right there for you. And if you have any questions, just read through, shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com. We'll take care of it. That's a big announcement.
Yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity. It's affordable. It's affordable, and it's going to reach out to quite a few people. And I think that it's a great opportunity for businesses to team up with us and be a sponsor right here at the Big Buck Registry.
It's going to give you great coverage. You'll find new customers, especially if just go read through it. You'll find out who our listeners are. And if you think it's a match, we want to hear from you. Well, cool, man. I think we should get Adam on the air right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Hillbilly Weatherman.
He's looking at me funny. He said, all right, let's do this. Hillbilly Weatherman, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Jay. I'm glad you got a hold of me, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
I'm psyched, and my wife made us coffee.
She did. She's a good woman. Made it just right, too.
I'm pretty psyched about it. What are you drinking tonight, Dusty?
I've got a Sprite sitting here.
Got some coffee, some water for when that goes dry.
That's right. I can drink coffee all night, and go right to bed when I'm done, too.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I have
some
no
people,
problem with that.
They don't understand it, but I don't either, but I can.
So, Adam Evans, that's your real name.
Yeah, Adam Evans.
But you're known as the Hillbilly Weatherman.
That's true.
And you've gone viral, really.
It's amazing what the internet can do for a fella these days.
So tell us about yourself. I mean, the character that we see online, is that you? Is that really you?
People ask me that all the time. I think sometimes I keep, I'm not really putting on too much of a show. That's pretty much me. When I started trying to script some of my weather reports, they really started to look like they were no good. Even my wife was saying, "What the hell are you doing?" Right. And then, so I just watched the weather. I check some of my stuff, and I go up there and just start talking. So I find the more I try to be me, the easier it is. It's hard enough to be me. Right. And try to be somebody else,
right.
It's even harder. So
right, gotcha. Well, I mean, you come across as authentic, which is the whole point of your show.
I believe so.
Is that it sounds real, like you are you.
Yep, I think everyone who knows me well, who's known me for a long time, would tell you that's Adam. That's him right up there. And I get how it is. You get online, all kinds of people give you all kinds of different inputs and opinions and whatnot, and they give you hell if they really choose to that night. But I look all past that, and I just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not out to please anybody, to be honest with you either. I just do my own thing, and people enjoy it. And I think if I just keep doing that, we'll keep doing it too.
Cool, that's awesome. Now, where are you from? You're from New Hampshire originally?
Yeah, native New Hampshire. I live in Francistown now. We've moved out there in '99, bought a house, me and my wife. But I grew up in Greenville. Which was a small little Canadian-French town at the time. Yeah. Just a couple thousand people and just a small Main Street community type of town.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I like to travel around New Hampshire. And your accent and the persona that you forecast on your videos, every bit reminds me of the majority of the people that I grew up with who I respected because they were great deer hunters.
Amen.
They're great storytellers, and they're just if you hung out with them, you learn stuff, even though they would kind of joke around a lot. Yep. And you weren't sure if they were setting you up or not, but you always learn something at the end of the day.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
I know exactly who you are in a lot of ways because I grew up with people just like you. Yep. And the people who were their fathers who are similar. It's like almost a tradition that gets handed down in New Hampshire, and I guess in essence that becomes the hillbilly part of New Hampshire in essence, even though I kind of think of them as just good old down east Yankees.
That's what I probably am, and some folks say, hillbilly, damn hillbilly and all that. You're just a Yankee, and most of the folks are from the South that say things like that, but I've got one fella who a real good dear friend of mine, and we're doing a lot of hunting together over the years, and he's the one that's been calling me hillbilly all the time. Yeah. So when we get around hunting season, I think that's where my boy ended up. I didn't call myself the hillbilly.
Who did?
My son did.
Okay.
We had a snow day, and I was home with the boys, and we started, I've been doing deer hunting, videoing, self-filming my hunts now for the last year or more anyway. And I kept wanting to figure out my software. Yeah. So I realized I want to make my own hunting show, so I want to learn how to do a green screen to make an intro. Right. So I figured I'd go get some green fabric and light it up and figured out how to do it right online. So we started playing around with that with my boys. And then the weather come on, Channel 9, and my boy says, Pa, he says, we got to do a weather report like they do on TV. That's all green screen. My kid knows more about this stuff than I do. And I said, sure, let's do it. So he said, yeah, you could be the Hillbilly Weatherman. Go get your hat and the suspenders. So I put on my hunting drab and whatnot. And then we did that first one that everyone saw that took off.
That first one was tremendous.
So he called me the Hillbilly Weatherman. So that's how it started, and it stuck, and here we are today.
It actually does stick. I mean, that's a good name for your whole show.
Yeah.
Hillbilly kind of, because who that person is truly a hillbilly in a lot of ways. I think of hillbilly, I often think of West Virginia, the hills of West Virginia.
Sure.
But the name for what it is, I think is perfect.
I think it works pretty good. I don't have a problem with it.
Right.
You know, I think I'm probably more hillbilly than redneck. I don't drive a big mud truck or nothing
Right.
like that. So,
Right.
you know, simple living's the way we do. You know, we were raising pigs for a while and chickens. We do a lot of butchering. We butcher our own deer. We butcher for folks in the area.
Right.
We smoke our own meats and hams and bacons. But you got to realize too, my grandparents. I've got heritage that goes back to Shaker Village as well.
Yeah.
So the simple way of life has been in me since I was a kid. You know, we've been slaughtering animals since then and harvesting big gardens and preparing for the winter like that. So
I was just going to say that's a tradition that goes deep into the soul of New Hampshire.
absolutely.
All the way back. My relatives, same way. I mean, it goes back to the farm life before the industrial age.
Yeah.
Before you had all these computers and.
Oh yeah, my grandparents, they grew or raised more food, most of the food they ate.
Yeah.
You know, it was nothing to go down there and see half a pig or something hanging downstairs and a bin full of carrots and potatoes and bookshelves on bookshelves full of canned vegetables and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, it'd take 4, 5, 6 weeks or more just to harvest a garden and get it ready.
Absolutely. And a lot of time, like my grandfather used to hang deer in his cellar, and my mom would go down cellar as a young child, and to this day hates deer hunting because her father wouldn't tell her that the deer were hanging in the basement.
That's where they were.
Right. But guess who taught me how to deer hunt?
Who's that, right?
That grandfather.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, he was a trapper, too, so there was nothing to see pellets and everything, too, stretched out on boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he worked for New Hampshire Fish and Game. You talk to the Fish and Game in New Hampshire about Bill Cochran, and anyone who's been there for a while is going to tell you they know Bill, and they ain't got a bad thing to say about him.
All right.
Makes you proud.
Dusty, you got any hillbillies in Ohio?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us about
Yeah,
it.
definitely. You know, they're definitely creatures of the land. You know, they like the land to be their basin for their food, and you know, it fits the style. No different at them. They're in New Hampshire. You know, they raise a garden and they live off the garden. The store is somewhere that they despise to go to.
Adam, you grew up in New Hampshire.
Yep.
And one of the things that really drew me to you, besides the viral aspects of your weather forecast, of course, was that you are a deer hunter.
Oh, absolutely. I live to hunt. I'm forced to work, but I live to hunt.
That was the first thing you said. I live for deer hunting.
I do.
When we first talked, and I was like, "This is fantastic."
You know, a lot of people got a hold of me and for all different kinds of reasons since this has started. And my wife had mentioned, boy, you know, if you could ever do something with deer hunting, a deer, I know you'd just love it. And when you got a hold of me, Jay, I tell you, I was pretty excited. I said, you know what, this guy Jay Scott, I had no idea who you were, but I knew it said the Big Buck Deer Registry and all that. And I tell you, I was pretty excited about it. So when you invited me up here too, there was no way I was going to say no to come meet you.
Cool, man. Well, it's not very often that we have guests in the studio.
Yeah.
And I have to say, as we sit here in the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast studios, and I look outside, what the doing out there?
It's snowing right now, and here we are in the first week of April, and we're supposed to get rain this week, and we didn't get a lick of rain, and here we are midweek, and it's snowing. We're going to get a few inches by morning.
Good God. Can you give us a forecast for today? What's the forecast for today?
For today, well, everybody, we started out this morning. It was pretty nice out there. The sun was out, and it was in the high 30s, low 40s, and, you know, it was shining all day there in Manchester. But as the day went on, them clouds rolled right in, and the temperatures dropped right behind it. And before I knew it, about 3 o'clock, while I was waiting for my boy to get home from school, it started snowing, and we had big old snowflakes falling for a bit, and mixed with some small ones, and then the temperature kept dropping. And tonight it's going to get down to about 30 degrees. And then all the snow is going to come in. We're going to get 2, 3, 4 inches of snow. Some of the higher elevations are going to get 5 inches or more. And it's all going to wind down by morning. And it's going to turn into showers because the temperature is going to come up. And then tomorrow's going to clear up pretty good. But then tomorrow night we got another big batch of rain that's going to move on through. But Friday the temperatures are going to get up into the 50s. And by the time we get to this weekend, the sun's going to be back out. We're going to hit 60 degrees by Sunday. And Monday, on my birthday, everybody, we're going to hit 70 degrees. That sun's going to be shining bright. So hang in there, get through this weekend. You're all going to be glad you did.
Happy birthday, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's fantastic. How old are you going to be?
I'm going to be 44.
44.
That's it.
I'm going to be 44 this year, too.
Well, there you go.
No kidding.
No
71.
kidding. 71.
Beautiful. It's a good year, man.
It is. I thought so.
So how many followers do you have on Facebook now?
I think I might have hit 133,000 before I come over here tonight.
My goodness.
I know I'm pretty darn close. I was 132,950 or so. Every time I go post or something, and every time I click it to try to read another comment or something, there's always 3, 4, 5, or 11 more people jumping on board. So
between the Big Buck Registry and the Hillbilly Weatherman, we've got a combined over 280,000 followers.
We do. Someone ought to be listening tonight.
We ought to kind of join forces here in some ways.
That sounds good. You're all about hunting, so I'm on board, and everyone wants to talk about the weather, so I got something to put in, right?
I want to hear some deer stories from you if we could in a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to find out is tell me about like the deer forecast. Can you do a deer forecast for us? Like where do you think what's the deer hunting season going to look like come fall?
Boy, that's a tough one. I tell you, I finally got out. I used to get out in the woods a heck of a lot before I had both my boys.
Yeah.
And I could look at my watch and tell you where the deer were, and that's no kidding. I finally got out a couple weekends ago to go check on the deer up behind the house because winters like this, they yard up out there, and there's nothing to see 30 deer. And I could tell where they'd been, but I tell you, I didn't see one single deer, and I'm not sure why. It wasn't too quiet. The ground was frozen. I didn't need my snowshoes because it was so hard. So, and I wasn't trying to be too quiet about it. I was just trying to get out there and make my rounds real quick because it's a couple-mile loop by the time I get back to the house. But there's a lot of deer. I'm just starting to see deer now. Like I was saying on the way over here tonight, I saw a few, just a few miles from your studios here. So, and they were looking good. They look good and healthy for deer that gone through a winter like we did. They had some size to them, and they didn't look too narrow. So I'm hoping that's true for everybody around here.
It seems like they came through all right. I mean, the snow came late, right?
Yep.
And it piled up fast.
It sure did.
And it's still hanging around.
Last fall, and if you got out there too around here, at least in my area, we had a bumper crop of acorns like you read about.
Right.
And, the deer we were bringing in and cutting up, they had fat in places you usually didn't even see it on them.
Right.
So that made you think, we might have a good cold winter coming in. And some of those deer being as fat as they were, I think they had plenty of reserves, and they had plenty of acorns. There's no way they ate them all.
Right.
So I'm hoping now with the snow cover, getting over what was left, that maybe that's enough to get them through. We just can't afford to have another heavy snow. What's going on right now is no big deal to the deer. But if it dropped, we've gotten snowstorm. I think it was 96 where we ended up getting like 30 inches of snow late in April.
Right.
Something like that's pretty hard on the deer.
Yeah.
Because they're going to start switching over. I'm sure you heard of those folks that were feeding the deer.
Yes.
And that, they lost all those. And I tell you, I can't tell enough people not to do that, to stop.
Yeah, we're going to have Dan Bergeron from Fish and Game come in and talk to us about that on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast in a couple weeks.
Excellent.
So we're going to really dig into that aspect of feeding deer, when you should, when you shouldn't, and if you're going to, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Because clearly something went wrong over there.
Yeah, I think they'd set so much out there, and those deer were hungry, and they gorged on it hard. Yeah. And it just, it took their lives, which is unfortunate.
And that's all it is. It's not so much that, I posted it on the Big Buck Registry. Of course, you get everybody saying that's a bunch of BS. And I guess if you're feeding them all year round and you're not in a northern area where they have to, after a while, their only thing that they can eat is browse, hemlock, and they're feeding their bellies or filling their bellies with all these things that are not corn.
Oh, right.
Right. And you change their diet dramatically in bulk in a day.
Literally overnight.
That's not good for deer. It's not good for any kind of ruminant.
No, the chemistry in their stomachs are just totally. People don't realize. If they understood what's really going on inside the deer, then they would understand. Their intentions were good. There's no question about that. So you really can't hang it on them. But you just need to understand what's going on. The deer make it through the winter every year, and the strong survive, and that's the way Mother Nature takes care of it. But to get the word out somehow to let more people know not to do that, not to congregate them, not to get the disease all up and get coyotes be able to pick them off.
And there's nothing wrong with feeding deer. And Dusty, you feed deer in Ohio, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're also surrounded with corn.
Yeah, that's that throughout the fall before the harvest, that's a main focal point for food for the deer.
Right. And you're not in an area where you get deep snow.
Yeah, that's correct. And another thing that I try to keep from doing is overfeeding.
Right.
Make them dependent on the corn. You don't want that.
Right. And that situation for deer in Ohio where you don't get snow cover, where they, even if it was on the ground, they can't get to it around here. So it's going to be a change in their diet. Whereas, and then if you go and dump out, I don't know, barrels and barrels of corn, and they should just gradually introduce it into their diet. Filling them up will just basically starve them to death, and they'll get toxemia and die. And it's a chance that's going to happen. But if you're in an area where they can get to it all year round, and the snow doesn't cover it over, and they're used to it all year round, even if they ate a lot of it, it wouldn't matter because they can digest it. Is basically what it comes
right.
down to.
That's the difference right there. And I think a lot of the folks out west too, and they got the acreage to do so, but they leave a lot of standing corn for their deer and other animals.
Right.
From what I understand.
Right. Exactly. So, did you ever think that the Hillbilly Weatherman would go so viral?
Not for a minute. No.
No kidding.
I never even tried to. You know, when I first, before all this happened, I had maybe 100 to 120 friends on my Facebook, and that was about it. I've been posting a few videos from time to time of me trying to get some, footage of deer, and then me just horsing around learning software. But and nothing ever did anything, and I never thought this one was going to be any different. Just something fun playing around with the boys, and every time we looked at that darn number, it just kept going up and up. And I know I've told a lot of other people too, but once I started getting messages from troops overseas, that's when I really started like, I'm just going to do another one and do another one. I've heard a few heart-wrenching stories, that really hit me hard. I mean, I'm a big supporter of the troops. I've had family that have been in plenty of wars and people that are serving right now. So if there's anything I can do to brighten someone's day over there, you're going to be damn sure I'm going to stay up all night to do it if I have to.
That's one thing that comes through loud and clear in your videos is that you have a soft spot for veterans and military.
I do.
In your life, in your heart. So, and so do I. And Dusty, I believe that's your case as well.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be sitting here right now if it weren't for those guys and gals.
Absolutely.
Protecting our way of life is really what it is.
So. They get you good. They got a spot in your heart. I tell my boys, I could chop my arm off. I wouldn't shed a tear.
Right.
But you show me one video of a soldier coming home hugging his wife or her kids in the school, and I'm soaked. I can't, they get to me, and I'm
a puddle. It's awful.
But it's awesome at the same time. It lets you know your heart is thinking about things right. So,
yeah, that's one of the things. It's like almost a sad excitement.
It is.
It's like a hybrid of emotions.
Yeah, anything like that, I just tear up.
Yep,
very badly. That or just a father, a mother-child relationship type thing, same kind of thing. But definitely a soft spot for anybody that's been in the military, no matter where it is.
Yeah.
If they're protecting the United States way of life, then I'm in.
Yeah.
All the way around. Well, so you've had some communications from military.
Oh, yes.
Overseas because of your videos. Tell us more about that.
Well, one of the first ones that come in, how I found out about it was when I first started putting the videos out, I started putting some on YouTube to put on my YouTube channel. And people started calling me a sellout and all this other. I still don't understand what being a sellout's all about. But once I put them on, I took them off of YouTube and put them back on Facebook. A woman from Maine had gotten hold of me. And she says, Adam, she says, you have to put your videos back on YouTube. And I said, why? She says, well, my son's over in South Korea, and they can't see your videos on Facebook because they won't, for privacy reasons.
Oh.
So she said, they love your stuff. And she said they just had some problems with people getting hurt over there. I'll just leave it at that. And then, so she said, they're really down the dumps over there. And this woman had sent my videos over to her son for them to watch, and they gathered around, and they really put some smiles back on their faces, and they kind of took them out of the war for a minute from what she was saying. And then when it was done, they were wondering where all the videos went, because I was putting them out every day. So she said, you got to put them back on there. And I said, I'll be putting them on tonight. I'll put every other one back on there for you, too.
Right.
So then I put it back on, and then people started giving me hell about it. And I said, you know what? I don't care. Every one of you folks can leave here tonight and shut me right off and say goodbyes, and I really don't give a I said, if I got one guy over there right now that says he wants to see it, I'll put it on here for that one guy, and the rest of you can go to hell. And that's where I got back on. And then people seemed to, I tried not to get too emotional or get upset at people, but people like that response. And that's just me being me again. So I said, you know what? I'm more convinced now to just keep doing what I'm doing. Don't even think about it.
That right there, not to interrupt you, Adam, but man, that right there is what I think that it draws me to you a lot. Like, you stand behind what you believe in and you do what you feel is right for the guys overseas. And man, that's real. That's you, and that's awesome.
I appreciate that. And then the more I keep hearing from different folks, a little while back, there's a ship off the coast, and I'm sorry, fellas, I can't think of the name of it right now, but they all gather around on that ship, and if they're on duty and they can't watch it, then they catch the next round and they put it on there so they can all watch it. And it's neat, some of the stories you hear. It makes you feel pretty good inside.
And we're back to that authenticity again. You got to be yourself, because if you're not going to be yourself, nobody's going to care.
Nope.
Being true to yourself is first and foremost. And man, that's awesome. I was wondering why you switched back to the YouTube broadcast. Yep. Now I understand.
That's exactly why. Yep.
Gotcha. Loud and clear. Good. So let's talk some more deer hunting.
Let's do it.
All right. So when did you start deer hunting?
Well, I grew up. I got one sister and 3 brothers. So my father, used to take us out one at a time. I never seen my father shoot a deer, by the way, but he'd take us out down in the woods, and he'd let us carry a .22 and. We'd go down and back, and then he'd grab another boy and take the next one out, and, we shoot squirrels or whatever. And I used to deer hunt, growing up, but never really got into it until after I got probably into my 20s when I really started taking it seriously. Yeah. My brother and my good friend Barry, 2 of my brothers and my friend Barry, the 4 of us, we hunt together all the time. But they started bow hunting. I didn't take it too serious. I found myself sneaking around the woods trying to sneak up on them. And in doing so, I started sneaking up on all kinds of deer. And before I know it, I was shooting deer, and that's pretty much, how I started really getting into it.
Gotcha. Do you get out much anymore?
I get out all the time, every chance I can.
You do?
If it's hunting season, don't even bother calling the house before dark, because I'm not there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So how are you going to do your videos?
I don't know.
So when did you start doing your videos? That was back, what?
Beginning of February.
Okay. I was going to say it was when the snow was the deepest and we needed something kind of lighten us up a little bit. And my wife and I were in bed just, in the doldrums of New Hampshire deep snow winters.
Yep.
And we turned on one of our phones and we looked at this video. And I was dying. I was rolling in it. It was so funny, but honest. And the swearing didn't bother me at all. It's like, because that's pretty much what I think in my head when my kids aren't around. I'd say it. That's what I was thinking.
Sure.
When I'm watching the forecast anyway. More snow.
No, you're right.
How did you develop the character? You just kind of started that way, and that's it. Or
that's it.
You just it.
I didn't even try to do any of this. That's what I mean. When we did that first report, that was exactly what I'm doing now. It's no different. It just
nailed it.
Come off top of my head.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And from there, do you have to warm up at all? Do you end up doing some like pre-shoot warm-ups, talking?
No.
I
ain't got time. I'm getting home from work, and literally, the only heat we got at the house is wood.
Yeah.
So if that stove's not running, it's cold. So when I get home, I got to make sure wood's in. If my boys don't already, they're 8 and 11, and they pretty much bring it. They get home from school and they're filling that whole wood box right up, and they'll get the stove stoked up and everything else. But when you get home, there's a lot to do. They got homework to do, and if I'm working, I might not get home till 4 or 5 o'clock at night, and I'm trying to get that video out. So I got to tend to them quick, get them on their homework, get upstairs, start putting together a video, come down, kind of get into the computer, sit down and eat dinner, turn around and jump back on that while they're doing, try to put it all together.
Do you shoot in your house?
Right upstairs.
Upstairs, and the green screen is behind you?
Yep. You got like an unfinished attic on one half of the house.
Yeah.
And then, I just took a 2x4 and pinned it up to the collar ties that are up there. And with thumbtacks, I just got the thing hanging down to another piece. And on the bottom, I put another 2x4 to kind of weight it, because you want to keep it stretched out.
Sure.
And then along the sides, I made a couple slices and put some green duct tape in her.
Yeah.
Stretched it out. So she's,
nice,
I find if you get rid of the wrinkles, nice, you're in good shape.
Good.
And then light it up. Got a couple halogens on the side, a couple fluorescents. I'm finding now that the more lighting I'm using, it comes out better.
Okay.
And then, but that's about it. So I can run upstairs and When I first started doing it, I'd take that green cloth and I'd roll it up in the 2x4 and I'd stand it up in the corner.
Gotcha.
And then I'd get home and I'd have to unroll it and I'd hang it up on my gun cabinet in the living room and stretch it down and try to pin it with something heavy and then light it up. And then I'd take all the lights down and I'd put it all, and that turned to be a lot of work. So I said, I got to make a little spot upstairs. So we made a spot up in the corner, and so now I can leave the green screen up and the lights are going. I just got to turn them on, bring the camera up with the video camera and set it in front of it, then hit record and go.
Gotcha. Is the green screen just a cloth, or what's it made of? Is it a regular?
It's green cloth. You go right down to Walmart, pick it up. It's about $2.97 a yard.
Is that where you got it?
Yep. It cost me about $13.
That's awesome. Now you added, I think, didn't you add a desk to your whole platform
did.
at some point? Oh, what was that all about?
Well, again, just playing around with the software. I was trying to figure out how people were doing some of this stuff. And you can find out so much stuff on Google and YouTube videos.
Definitely.
So they were showing some of these, I forget what they call them now, but like digital studios, so to speak. So they were showing you how you do it. And you just got all the green cloth and whatnot behind you. And you take another green one and drape it right over your table. So then you sit behind it. And then online you can download the studio.
Yeah.
And you kind of put it on there and line yourself up. And as soon as you put it together, you're like, no shit.
Yeah.
Look at me. All right, let's have fun with it. And I made myself a little monitor on the side. And once you learn how to layer all your video and where to put it so you can make stuff pop up on here and stuff behind you and everything else, it gets fun. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Huh. That's interesting. Speaking of Googling, that's how I learned how to podcast in the first place, was Google.
Sure.
You know? And listening to other podcasts about podcasting is basically what it came down to. So same scenario here.
I've learned more on Google in the last 10 years than I did all my life at school. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I did it growing up. It's amazing.
Seriously.
It is.
It's amazing.
Google will take your life to the next level.
Yep.
It sure can if you wanted to.
Anytime I want to learn how to do something, I go right there first. Try to find a video.
Yeah. So what was the last year you shot a nice buck?
Oh, my 7-pointer was just a few years back. It was probably that's a good story.
All right, let's hear that one.
You know, I've been trying to help my brother get some deer on the wall. I got a big 9-pointer. He's my biggest one up there. But I've been shooting deer or two every year since the 90s. I have no problem getting my deer every year.
Okay.
So I usually try to help someone else. So I'm trying to help my brother out. We're hunting this spot up in Lineborough, and I know it well. And so I'm telling him, okay, Matt, you got to get down here, and we're going to set you up down here, and I'm going to sit up here on the hill, and the deer have been coming through, and if they're going to win me, and if they don't, I'll even scare some down there, but just stay down below, and they'll cut by the barn and whatnot. So I got him down there the first day, and his only problem is trying to pay attention. Like most people, they get drifted in their thoughts, and they think about what they got to do when they get home, and, you know, they're not paying attention to the woods. And before I know it, he got back to me on the radio and tells me, hey, the deer got by, and there was a nice buck. And I said, you didn't shoot him. He says, no, he got too far by me. So I'm sitting there waiting, and I see the 2 does coming, and he's telling me to shoot one of the does. I said, I ain't going to shoot no doe. It's too early. I'm just going to wait. And then I never did see the buck. So I asked him, I said, you sure you saw that buck? He says, I did. I said, all right. I said, we'll come back tomorrow morning. I'll set up a little bit deeper. I'll get him ticked down toward you. I wanted him to shoot this deer. Well, my son had asked me that night. He says, Pa, he says, can I go hunting with you tomorrow? I said, well, we're getting up awful early. I said, Uncle Matt's showing up. It's going to be raining. I don't know if you want to go out in the dark, because the last time we tried it, he didn't want to go out in the dark. He said, all right. I said, well, I'll bring you out in the afternoon. Well, 4:30 rolls around, and my brother didn't show up. And I don't wait too long for too many people, even if you're my brother. Right. So he knows I'd be out there, and I needed to get in where I needed to be. So I started getting ready, and then my son come out, and he says he wanted to go hunting. So I decided to take him with me. We got to the edge of the woods. It's raining, it's dark, and he didn't want no part of it. So I had to turn around and bring my son back home.
Yep.
And then I head back out to the woods, and I get up all set up in there, and sure enough, here comes that buck along the stone wall, and he was a good one. So I said, there's no way I'm not shooting him. And my brother never showed up. So I shot the deer, and it ran right down. I swear to God, the thing died within 10 yards of where he'd been setting, where he had the spot cleared out. So I called him up on the phone. I said, Matt, I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I overslept. I said, you did, huh? And I didn't say nothing. He says, you shot the deer, didn't you? I said, I did. I said, you know where I'm sitting right now? He's like, you son of a bitch. I said, dude, I can see the barn. Kloop's sitting right there, and I got the big old 7-pointer laying in front of me.
Yep.
So
why is that the case? I've had that happen so many times one person didn't show up or they just refused to go to the spot we told them to go to. And the deer, every one of them, go right to where that spot is.
Yep. I don't know, but it's, you know,
But just
they don't
predict.
show-
I think it's just a good hunter that can predict their movements.
Yep. Deer are very predictable.
Very predictable.
I'm more dumbfounded how people don't shoot a deer all the time.
Right.
I really don't get it. I find it too easy to, and a lot of people ask me, what are you doing? And no matter how much I try to tell them, I don't know if they just don't listen or they don't want to believe me or what. You try to tell them, you can't cheat the wind, so don't even try. And you tell them how to do things and where to approach them. I'll put them in some of my best spots. They won't do nothing there, and I'll go back down there and shoot a deer the next day.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So let's break this down a little bit. What do you do different than other hunters do? Tell us about, let's start with your preseason pack. Like, what do you have what do you bring in the woods with you?
Oh, I don't bring a whole lot.
Okay.
I travel pretty light.
All right.
I never know if I'm going to be moving or sitting, so if I got a backpack, I'll put something in there to wear. You know how it is. If you're moving around, you take off a layer, and if you're going to slow down, you put one back on. Don't let yourself get too hot. If you're starting to get your breath up, make sure you ain't got very much clothes. Take a layer off before you start getting, that in that fashion. But not much. Probably one of my best things to have on me is something to check the wind with. You know what I like to do? You get out there. I know by Hartlip's cornfield our way, they got those, I don't even know what the heck you call them, the little pods that get the dry. You throw them in the wind, they take off floating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what
And
you
I'll
mean.
grab a few of those. They'll be in my pocket all season.
Okay.
And I'll just reach into my pocket and I'll grab a few of them and I'll just let them go. And I'll sit there and watch them. One thing I do, too, I try to tell everyone, step into the woods, get in about 40, 50 yards, and don't do a damn thing for about a half an hour. Just sit there. Let the woods come back to life. You walk into the woods, and the choir of the forest kind of stops. And then it slowly comes back to life around you if you're listening. And you'll hear the birds picking back up. And now things are kind of good. But if you just go walking right in and tramping right in, that's something I try to tell people not to do. Just walk in the woods 50 yards and just hang up for about a half an hour.
Yeah.
Especially once the season gets going, you'll be surprised how many deer are sitting there watching you walk in. Find a different spot to enter the woods every time. Don't go in the same spot. Deer have you patterned long before you ever pattern them.
That's a good point.
They do.
I think they like watching us.
Yep.
And they'll sit there quietly.
Oh,
They'll
yeah.
watch you watch. Look around.
We got the deer camp. We call it Perky 4 over there in Greenfield, my brother's. And he lives over in Greenfield, over by a swamp. And he keeps walking in the same direction, goes in the same down spot. I think he puts his feet in the same spot every time, too. And he walks along the edge of that swamp, and he says, I'm going down to the corner. Well, I was just reading another article about, just like I was saying, the deer got you patterned long before you pattern them. And they know when you go to work, and they know when the school bus drives by. And during that time of year, everything shuts down about 8 o'clock for a bit.
Yeah.
And everyone's already got to work, and the school buses go by, and there's that little lull.
Yeah.
And deer like to move during that time. Well, hunters are already in the woods at the same time. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go hunt this little piece of land right here. He thought I was crazy. So you ain't going to be nothing over there. So I got a feeling that if this holds true, there might be some deer sitting there watching you walk into the woods, and they're going to sneak right across the swamp, and they're going to sit right here. He said, you sit wherever you want. So he went down to the corner. So I went right out of his driveway, sat there, and I watched him in his orange vest make his way down along the swamp. And then I heard his wife get up and go to work.
Yeah.
And then the school bus come down the dirt road and picked his son up and took him to school. And about 15 minutes later, right in the corner where he went in, this big old 6-pointer. He'd have been a big 8 if he had brow tines. He didn't even have one. But he stood right up out of that grass, and I was watching the whole time. He was there when my brother went in, I guarantee it. And he just proceeded to walk right to me. And I had it probably took him 20 minutes to clear that land, that swamp. And the whole time I got my bead on him. And I'm thinking my brother's going to his pants in about 5-10 minutes. And then as soon as I shoot this deer, and I let that deer get to about 40 yards from me when I shot it.
Yeah.
And it ran the rest of the way out of the swamp. And he come up on the radio and he's like, we all got names for each other. And I'm Chicken Bob. He said, Chicken Bob, was that you? I said, of course it was, big dog. There's nobody over here but me. He's like, you son of a bitch, you shot a buck, didn't you? Because he knows I wouldn't shoot anything else.
Right.
I said, I did. I said, it's a pretty good one. I'm going to probably need a hand hitting him out of here. He was probably only about 170 pounds, but nice big 6-pointer. But that was a big eye-opener to knowing what the deer are thinking by the time we get into rifle season.
Yeah.
They know what you're doing.
Gotcha.
They're waiting for you to walk into the woods. So sneak up on them or go in a little different way.
That's good. Do you care about like scent control other than the wind? Do you care about washing your clothes in certain soaps or using certain sprays or anything like that?
I use some scent, definitely more during bow season than I do when I get into rifle. I try to keep on a pretty, depending on what I'm doing, depending on where I'm hunting. If I'm gonna get more into stalking or some areas, I don't worry too much about it. I guess it all depends on what I'm doing. I don't have a strict regimen I use 100% all the time. But for the most part, I'm keeping my clothes clean. I'm keeping them outside. None of my clothes come in the house. They all stay in a bin. They stay in the back of my truck.
Okay.
So whenever I want to go hunting, I'm ready to go hunting. My truck's ready to go.
Gotcha.
Throw some hemlock branches in there.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Rubber
boots. You got to have rubber boots.
Rubber boots seem to be a common theme amongst all the hunters we've talked to that are good hunters.
Yep.
Rubber boots. Keep your clothes in the back or outside or just in a tote somewhere.
Hang them out by the woodpile. Right.
Let them become natural.
Yep.
With the wind and the dirt and all that kind of stuff.
Think like a trapper, too,
Yeah.
Don't touch anything. Have a stick with it to move stuff, or use your bow or something to move branches out of your way. Keep your hands in your pockets, for Christ's sake. Don't be touching everything.
Right.
Because everything you touch is going to leave some scent behind. So.
Right.
Yeah, Adam, do you do anything far as before you go, like soap, scent-free soap and shower or anything?
I do in the mornings usually. If I'm getting out of work, depending on what I got for time. If I ain't got time to go home and take a shower and all that, then I'll head out. I'll spray down with scent away, and I might pick my stand a little different. I got some stands that I swear that the wind is so predictable all the time. It's down by the river. It's a high bank. I could sit there and smoke a cigar, and the deer would come up because they're never gonna. I don't care what the wind's doing that day. When you get down by that river, it follows that water, and it just blows right down, and you'll watch the deer stand up.
Right.
But if I know I'm getting into a couple of my better stands where, if I spotted a buck or I know something's in there and I'm going in, I'll take pretty good caution to try not to blow it because, you can ruin a good thing real quick.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. Tell us about your hunting attire.
Well, I got a scent lock suit. It's pretty old. I could probably use a new one. I don't know how long those things last for you, but rubber boots, that's pretty much it. And my hat, the hat you see me on all my videos with, I tell you what, I love taking that hat hunting. I've shot a lot of deer in that hat. So,
ooh, we got a lucky hat story brewing here, Dusty.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
How'd you get the hat?
Shoot, I've probably had the hat wearing one of those since the 90s. My buddy, I actually borrowed, you know what it was? I borrowed a coat from a friend. Yeah. One of those Johnson Mills wool coats. Yeah. And that was the warmest darn coat I ever wore. And I knew I had to get one after. So we went up to a place in the woods in Antrim when they were still around and bought wool coat and wool pants. And we were sitting there waiting to try to get out of there to pay and everything else. And I spotted that crusher cap. And I said, I got to have it. My grandfather always wore a hat similar to that. So I said, he always wore a red one, though. So I bought a green one. And it matched everything. And they picked on me. Geez, got a green hat, got a green coat, got a green wool pants. And my wool pants I bought big because you want them oversized. So that's where I ended up getting the suspenders. So I bought the suspenders to wear with the wool pants. And so now when I got my scent lock suit, I like everything a little bit heavier, or bigger, I guess you'd say. So I just used the suspenders to hold the pants up and whatnot. But for the most part, I just put on my scent lock suit and I put on my rubber boots and head on out.
Gotcha.
Not afraid to walk around and try to find them or sit in a tree. I can sit in a tree all day too, if as long as you know you're in the right tree.
Right. Do you end up doing any tracking when the snow flies, or are you more of a stand or a still hunter?
Well, it depends. I mean, you can definitely go out. I'll go after some deer. You got to be smart about it. I tell you, there's a good story for about everything, right? My grandfather was a hell of a hunter. I'll tell you what. There's not many people they don't cut them from that cloth anymore.
Do you give him credit for teaching you what you know?
I can't, really. No, because I didn't go around my grandfather much. I learned more about him after he'd passed away than not. But when we started getting into hunting, before he passed on, I was lucky enough to share some stories with him. And my Uncle Tom, he's another one who's been hunting and trapping with my grandfather since he was 7 years old. And they know the woods these are real woodsman people. Yeah, I'm not even worthy of what they know. You know, I mean, they're just
I know
something
what you
special.
mean.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
But so this was years ago out in Milford, and early in my bow hunting, you know, I was probably in my early 20s, and I was heading to my hunting spot, and first a nice deer jumped right out, small buck, but it crossed in front of the road, and I was like, damn. And then right behind him, this big old buck jumped right over the road in one bound and was gone. And I thought, well, where are they going? I got snow on the ground. I'm going to go get them. So I started after him. I'm telling my grandfather this the whole time right on Thanksgiving. So I start following these deer, and I jumped them up again. They took off running. My grandfather just starts chuckling. He's just laughing, you know. So I tell him, I'm looking at him, going, what are you laughing about? So, all right. So I keep telling him I go after the deer again and jump them up again. So long story short, I jumped them up a couple times and never saw them again. They just took off. He says, fella, next time you do that, he says, you jump them deer up in the snow, the tracks are going to be spaced out because they're running. And then those tracks are going to start to narrow up, and they're going to be pretty straight. But once you see them kind of looking around a little bit, you stop what you're doing. They're going to tighten up, and that deer's looking for a spot to watch his back trail. He said, what he's going to do is he's going to fish hook on you, he says, and he's going to want to be above you. You stop right in your tracks, and you look around them woods, and you check your wind, and kind of look around to see where you'd want to be, because that deer thinks you're like a coyote. He says he thinks you can smell where he's walking. So that deer's going to hook around. He's going to watch his back trail to watch you come walking along his scent trail. He says, you back on out of there. Do a wide loop around where you think that deer might be looking. He says, you give that a try. Now, I'll tell you what, the first time you do that, and you sneak up behind the deer, and you look at its ass as that deer's looking down the hill, you'll go, no And you kind of look like, I felt like my grandfather was right there with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't shoot the first one I did it, but I've shot something in that fashion before.
That's
the first one.
That's a really good tip, actually.
That's an excellent tip.
That's a fantastic tip. And I don't think I've actually ever applied that, but I need to. Something I haven't really done yet, but if I was smart, that's something I should have done already.
You do it, Jay, and the first time you sneak up behind one, you'll say the same thing. It's a neat moment.
Huh, that's a good one. I like that a lot. So where do you want to go with the Hillbilly Weatherman?
Wherever it goes.
Okay.
I'm really not trying to even push it in any direction.
Yeah.
It seems like the less I try to do, the more comes out of it. I'm getting offers from all kinds of, it's crazy. There's some comedians that want me to go down. They're doing a fundraiser for to Boston Children's Hospital and all that. They want to know how much I charge for me to show up.
What do you say?
I haven't said nothing. I'm still speechless. Like I don't think I could charge anybody to go show up. How do you answer that question?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. It's there are a lot of there's quite a learning curve, I think, to somebody that's gotten this much fame in such a short amount of time.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's really what you wanted when you started this whole endeavor, but you got it. So, but it's such a great message. I mean, at the end of the day, and I heard Greg, because you've been on other radio shows, and you've been kind of touring across the New Hampshire a little bit.
Yeah.
Greg said that your message is so good because it is about helping other people.
Absolutely.
So I think that goes a long way.
Yep. You know, if I could get something I'd like to see kids get more involved in the outdoors. I know I got boys. You got some kids too, and when we showed up here tonight talking about them, they're playing on the Xbox, and we can't keep that stuff away from them. You know, they're growing up around it. I don't expect that.
Right.
But there's just too much of that going on, and not enough of some other good things that could be going on. I keep saying, if there's a way I could try to work with some programs to help kids in whatever. I take kids hunting every year. I can't, my boys are just getting to the age now where they can shoot a shotgun. My youngest, Eric, he's ready to go. But leading up to this time was when my nephews or a fella's son that lets me hunt on his land, I take kids out youth hunting every year. And it's so rewarding. You almost wish you could bring someone along with their kids and have a good time with it, excuse me, to let them realize just what it feels like to be out there with them and how, I don't think they get it. And if they could, and you could find a way to introduce that to them, maybe you could get something rolling, get more people involved.
That's a great idea. Dusty, where would you take the Hillbilly Weatherman if you were the Hillbilly Weatherman?
It's one of them things where it has potential to go a long way. And it's definitely headed in the right direction. And I'm going to say my hat's off to you for taking your time and hashing through all the offers and all the overwhelming things that's been thrown in your lap. And I think that if you keep going the way you're headed with the Hillbilly Weatherman, that some great things and some great opportunities to do what you want to do will be presented to you, and then you can lead right into where you want to be. Does that make sense to you?
You know what? You took the words out of my mouth. I'm waiting for the right thing to come along that makes me say, that's it. You know, that hasn't happened. Early on, I know people heard too, I got contacted from folks in L.A. with that reality show. They couldn't offer me enough to get out there and everything else they were doing, and it just didn't feel right. You know, they had a chance to some pretty good money, and, you know, I wasn't into doing that. And initially, you think like, wow, you know, they're talking six figures here. I could be, but what am I going to do? I'm going to move out to California. My family's out here. Right. I'm not taking off for a while. So you stay put, and the inside of you says it ain't right. So you just back away.
Right.
And I keep thinking that I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I haven't tried to make any of this happen. And if something's supposed to be, it will. So when the right thing comes along, I'm going to know it. And then Absolutely. I think I'll go for it.
Plus, the whitetail hunting in California sucks.
Yeah, that's what I hear. If I can get out in some hunts, people want me to do a weather report, and I can hunt somewhere other than... I've never hunted outside New Hampshire.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep. So, and I've gotten offers. I'll tell you what, there's been a lot of folks offering me from moose hunting up in Canada all the way out to big deer hunting out west. And, you know, maybe I'll take someone up on them. You know, people are always good about it. Once they hear them hunting, oh, you got to come out here, come down to Kentucky, come out here to Iowa, come out here to here, and I'll take you hunting and all that. Get yourself out here. I got a guide service, and I'll put you up.
See, that kind of stuff I would take advantage of if I were you. Here and there.
Yeah,
you know?
I think I will.
Yeah. Yeah, I've hunted outside of New Hampshire, and there's something very special about New Hampshire, especially when you go out to other states and you realize that it's cool to go other places and hunt, but the style is different. And once you get used to the style of hunting in New Hampshire, no matter what style it is, there's something very special about the New Hampshire woods, and I don't know if I could ever leave it now that I know what it is. Dusty, you've never hunted in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Dusty's from Ohio. He hunts massive big bucks in Ohio. The venison tastes different because of what they feed on. They're not eating hemlock and
yeah, I'm sure they do.
Acorns. They're eating soybeans and grasses and corn all year round. And I've had meat from other states, and it tastes different. It tastes more like beef. But the hunting is not hilly. It's not. There's no tracking. You know?
I would miss that. I know I would.
I miss it when I leave to go hunt other places, and I always want to come back to New Hampshire because that's the style of hunting I like. So but it's always interesting to see how other people live and go about their day. And like when I visited Dusty for the first time in Ohio, and I flew out to Dayton. Dusty said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want you to drive me around to your deer hunting spots, man. I want to go out in the woods."
Yeah.
And I want to meet your kids. I want to see how you live. You know, I didn't want to go sightseeing or anything. I want to go see what you're all about.
Yeah.
And that's the most interesting part, is just to get out and get to meet some of the other people and see what the other hunting is like. Because a lot of times you just want to go back home anyway.
Yeah, I like meeting people. Back in the 90s, me and my wife drove cross country. We took about 5 weeks to get all the way out there.
Yeah.
And met a lot of interesting people along the way. And we stayed out. My brother was in the Marine Corps. He'd just gotten out. And we were living in Laguna Hills. We stayed there for the summer and realized that was no place for us. And we took 5 weeks to get there, 3 days to get home. So that'll tell you we were in the wrong place. But, you know, along the way, we got to meet a lot of different people. We stayed in a lot of campgrounds and whatnot, too. And you're right. There's a lot of ways of life that people do that are a lot different, even though we're all in the same country. So
right.
It's interesting to meet people. So to apply that to the hunting and see how other people hunt and all that, you know, it'd be really neat. You see it on TV, but I know it's not what you know, that's not the real thing.
It's not the same.
No.
As getting out in the woods with the other hunters and find out how they do it, how they look at the whole picture.
Yep.
Just, you know, we visited a couple of Dusty stands, and I got to see how he sees things.
Sure.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating.
It's amazing the difference from Ohio to New Hampshire, where here, Adam, you've got to have written permission to be on a piece of land that's not owned by you.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, in the land that's right next door, it may be no hunting, you know, and it could be anti-hunters that own it. So, you know, when you get a piece of land here, like let's say, like one spot I took, Jay, is 11 acres. It's nothing real big, but there's a lot of acreage around it that's great potential to the areas known for very nice bucks. So I got in the middle of all this with this 11 acres, got the written permission. My whole thing is I got to draw them from the neighboring place properties to me where you guys can roam. You know, there's no permission slips. As long as it's not posted, you can hunt in New Hampshire, if that's correct. Is that right, Jay?
That's correct. Yep.
So, you know, coming here, you know, say I had you and Jay both come in, I'd have to have the landowner write you out permission to hunt the land. Which is no big deal. You open the invitation anytime. But yeah, that's the difference here versus New Hampshire. You know, we're fields and small patches of woods, where you guys are hills and large, massive woods.
Yeah, definitely different. I mean, yeah, and most of the posted stuff out here, I mean, if you talk to the landowners, most of them are good. They try to limit it or keep out-of-staters from just coming in. You know, we get people from Mass. I don't know, not all of them. I never lump a group of people together, but you can, you know, a lot of the people who own some of this land like to try to keep people they know or someone's going to go up to their door. And I've had a few people like that. Bill Hazen's a guy down in Amherst, owns hundreds and hundreds of acres. And I was on my way to work one morning, and I come across a fella who I thought was heading into the woods, but he was actually just coming out of the woods. So I just slowed down and said, "Hey, good luck to you." And he said, "Oh, I'm coming out." And I said, "Who owns all this land? I always see it's all posted." He said, "Oh, Bill Hazen. He lives down the corner in that big farmhouse." I said, "Oh," he says. So I'd asked about, what he was like and all that. He said, "Oh, he's a real good fella." He said, "If you stopped in and talked to him and his wife," I said, they'd probably let you hunt. So on the way home from work, I pulled in, knocked on the door, and I probably sat down, talked with his wife for about an hour, hoping Bill would come home, and he didn't come home, and I had to get going. So she said, "You stop in tomorrow, and I'll tell Bill you stopped by." And she said, "I think he'll let you do some hunting on here." So I swapped in there the next night and got to speaking with him. And sure enough, I was probably there another hour or so talking with him. And he was getting ready to post the land again and all that. So, I offered up, "Hey, if there's anything I can do to help you, I can learn some of your land, learn your property lines and all that. I'd be more than happy. Just let me know. I'll be down here." So that's what we did, and he appreciated it. And now people wonder how come you can hunt down there? It's all posted. I said, "I just went and knocked on the fella's door. You ought to go down there and do the same. Just let him, don't sneak on there. He's a hell of a guy."
Right. And a lot of times, especially in New Hampshire, where you're free to roam unless it is posted, they only post because they want to keep so many people out, or there's certain people they want out, or they just want to know how many people are in.
Yep.
And it's not so much they won't let you, just got to go ask.
Yeah, he took my name, my plate number.
Yep.
My plate on my truck says The Rut. And he wanted to know if I'd ever been in another one. I said, "Nope, I'll never show up here in another truck or another vehicle. I'll always be that one." And he's like most folks, don't park in front of my gates in case I got to get in and out, and don't shoot a deer in the field.
Right.
Other than that, out behind the house, because he had some good fields, so they like to watch the deer right out there. So, and I never did. And I never shot, I never even stepped foot on that land. I never even once went out there hunting, but I know I could. And, I had another run-in with him a couple years after that, because he got into a car accident with my wife. He T-boned her.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So, and no one got hurt, which was good. He hit her pretty good, stove the side of the car right in, but... So when my wife got home, she got in an accident. Everybody okay? And I got the name. She said it was William Hazen from Amherst. I'm like, "Bill?" And I mentioned to her, "Remember that fella said I could hunt on there?" So I stopped back down the house there a couple of weeks after that, and because I hadn't hunted on the land and I hadn't spoke with him in a while, but I wanted to see if it was still okay if I hunted and all that. And I looked at him. I said, "Bill," and I, winking at him, "I'm sure it'd be okay because you just ran into my wife, And he's like, "That was your wife?" And so we laughed about it because no one got hurt and all. But Most of the folks in here in New Hampshire are pretty good. So anyone who wants to go hunting, you ought to just kind of show up. Don't show up with your gun the day you want to go hunting.
No.
Show up beforehand. There's always something that can be done. People talk about it all the time. Why don't you show up and offer to help out? I don't know if people think that that's just a far cry or they just don't want to, but you'd be surprised how far that'll go for you.
Probably best not to show up in your hunting orange, right?
Yep.
And leave your firearm at home. Get in way before that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go in after work.
Yeah.
People, then he'll realize that you worked all day just like he
Just
probably
like they
did. Yep.
Right. That's
They're
a
just
very
good
good
folks.
point. Very good
That's
point.
that's some great tips, guys. That's killer that you're talking about that.
That is killer. So, Adam, this is it's been quite an adventure for you so far as the Hillbilly Weatherman. It sounds like he is just going to let it go where it goes.
Yep.
So, if people listening to this show want to visit you, where do we find you? Hillbillyweatherman.com or?
Oh, yeah. Hillbilly-weatherman.com is the website.
Okay.
I got a fella from Maine, T-Bone, who I've never even met him, but talking with him on the phone enough, I've gotten good and comfortable with him. He's definitely a good old Mainer. And he put the website together, and he's done a lot of good things for me already. So hillbilly-weatherman.com.
Okay.
Because someone already took Hillbilly Weatherman and tried to sell it to me within 2 weeks.
Are you serious?
I ain't lying to you. And people were telling me that was going to happen. And I don't even know what the heck they're talking about.
Right.
And I started this woman from Florida. I said, you
stinks.
got to be kidding me. So T-Bone got on it, and he was already realizing people were stealing my videos, putting them on theirs, monetizing them. So he's all over it. He knows a heck of a lot more than I ever did and ever probably will. But he's like, oh, they've already, taken yours, and they've made this much money on you, and they're doing this one. He says, I'm going to put an end to that right now. So I said, okay. So I'm letting him handle everything. But that's how you go ahead and get a hold of us.
How'd you meet T-Bone? Well, who is T-Bone? Tell me a little bit more about T-Bone.
Well, his name's Tony. He's from Maine. Like I said, I've never met him.
Yeah.
Only online. And I think he offered up to, a lot of people had offered to put websites together for me. Some people wanted to charge me money. Some people, you can imagine, I probably never fielded every offer that come my way because they can't get to them. But there was just, I don't know, every once in a while something comes up and the inside. I mean, I listen to the inside of me, I think, when you hear something and someone's talking to you and something just feels right about it. And I don't know, maybe I was lucky to run into Troy. I call him T-Bone. I told him.
Like that name.
Yeah,
T-Bone.
you need a name like that. So I'm going to call you T-Bone. He kind of laughed, and I said, doesn't matter. You work for me now. We have fun with it like that. And I got a guy, too, that he graduated from the Berklee College of Music. And he decided I needed some music and stuff like that. Because when you get on a show like this, it's all royalty stuff, and you can pay it. You can use some stuff and you can't. But he said, oh, you're going to need some, and I'd like to offer that to you. I'd like to make some up. I got a music studio and all this stuff. And I said, well, that'd be great. So I don't want no money for it. He said, I just want you to have some of my stuff. So I said, well, sure, go ahead, throw something together. And he put some neat licks together. Everything I used for the Sugar House series was all his, Michael T. And so I ended up, it's funny how you kind of get a picture of someone in your head.
Yeah.
And then you actually see the guy. And he's a skinny little kid. It was kind of funny. But so I've got a lot of good offers, and when things feel right, them are the ones I kind of attach myself to.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like you got you almost got a staff in a way.
That's what we call it.
Yeah. It's like the Hillbilly staff.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
We told him we were going to make him a official member, and if anything ever come from it, he'd be right on board, and I'd never turn my back to him.
That's cool.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Adam, I can't say thank you enough, and we deeply appreciate you coming on the show and telling us your story. And how busy are you these days? Is it just overwhelming, or do you have it balanced out?
I'm getting better at it.
Okay.
My boss has been real good at work. He'd been letting me early on. He didn't want to lose me, and I know that. And I know I'm a big part of that company, and I'm pretty good with the computers. I started getting a whole database to order all the order tracking because they're still doing file cabinets. And then putting together spreadsheets for all the quoting for the salesmen and just really organizing the place over the last year and a half. And we pretty much got our arms wrapped around it pretty good now. And he's got no computer experience. They got an iPhone, and he went to a class to learn how to run it. So that kind of tells you where he's at,
Yeah, sure.
So even though I developed all this stuff for him, I really can't just drop it in his lap.
Right.
And I was pretty excited to get it all together, take a lot of pride and stuff like that. So to walk away from that didn't feel right. He's been good to me for the last 8 years in my family. I always look at the guy who's putting me to work and all that. They're putting food on my table. They're feeding our family. So I turn back and do the best thing I can for them. So even though all this come here and got dropped on my lap, I didn't even feel right walking away from him. So he's like, if you need to leave, you want to do something, and so he lets me get out and try to do the videos. When I was doing them every day, he was letting me leave early.
Yeah.
And that's what I could start to see it affect the company. And he'd look at me later on after a couple of weeks of that. He's like, "What are you still doing here?" I said, "I'm here because I got to work, Norm. I got to work. I can see I can see you going nuts, and your wife's it's a family business, and his wife's getting a little worried too. And so, no, that didn't feel right. So I just kind of tuned it down, and I said, I'm going to just go ahead and put 3 videos out a week. And because it's just too much for what I'm doing. If I had the time to do it every day and I didn't have to work all day, that'd be different. But that's not the case I'm in. So
gotcha. So you went from 1 a day to 3 a week.
Yep.
And not as many outside appearances.
Right. Toned it down.
Gotcha.
Let's get back to reality.
Yeah. It's you had a lot dumped on you, man.
It did.
Crazy. But you know what I'm pumped about is that you took some time to come visit us in the Big Buck Studios and actually lay down some tracks for the podcast.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
I appreciate being here.
Dusty, got any last questions for Adam?
Adam, I just want to tell you thanks for joining us, man. What a great inspiration feller that you are, and what you got going is amazing. That you can go in and read your comments that are below all your videos, and you can tell that you're reaching out and touching the hearts of a lot of people. And in my eyes, that's fame by itself.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do. And I know you get online. I get on other pages. I'm a big gun collector too, and I get on different ones. And you know how comments go online; they really get out of hand sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And so my wife, she's on a lot more than I am, but she's always like, "I can't believe the comments on your page." And I'd be like, "Why? What's number?" No, they're all good. 99% of them are good. Every once in a while, someone will chime in with something that ain't so good, and then the rest of the folks will come in and chew them up real quick and spit them out, and before you know it, they're gone, and we're back onto the good things again. So. Must be doing something right. Everyone's having fun with it. I'm having fun. People are appreciating it, and it's growing all the time.
Yeah.
So
now and then we get an anti-hunter that decides to attack us. So I usually just take a picture of it and I launch it out to our 150,000 contingent, and they're pretty much shut down their own Facebook page by the end of the day. It's a beautiful thing.
There you go.
Yep. So Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
The Hillbilly Weatherman has left the building. Just like Elvis, man. Just like Elvis.
It's crazy. What an amazing gentleman of a feller that Adam is.
He's really a good dude, isn't he?
Yeah, I like his energy. I like the way he thinks. I like everything that he's got going. Really, I really enjoy his stuff.
I looked out the window when he was leaving. I was a little concerned because, it literally piled up 2 inches of snow out there. And it was not friendly driving conditions. And I said, Adam, you okay to drive in this? He goes, I used to plow truck for a living. I've been looking for some snow to play in. It's pretty much what he said.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, good dude. And I love that he's a deer hunter, and he's just got a strong message of being, authentic and good to people, help each other out, supporting the troops. It's just, he's a deer hunter. He's just a full package,
Yeah, what amazing tip that he talked about there about the tracking. That was killer.
Yeah. That stuff, I'm sure I've read it in a book somewhere at some point, but that's the kind of stuff that kind of goes in one ear and out the other until you're actually in it. But if you have somebody that shows you that, you remember it forever.
Oh, yeah, I agreed. I agree that 110%.
Yeah. So he was listening that day when that tip was handed down. So good for him. No, I'm psyched. I'm psyched to have him on. I'd love to have him on frequently as a guest, a weathercaster.
Absolutely. That'd be excellent for the listeners and for us. And holy smokes, have the Hillbilly Weatherman come in and give us a little forecast. He's reaching out to different states now a little bit more, and he's starting to broaden his horizon.
Yeah.
So I think that, with due time, he'll cover pretty much the whole United States for us.
Exactly. Now, if you're tuning in, we tried for the first time doing a live video in the studio from the Big Buck Studios with Meerkat, and it was all going great until I went to save the video for everybody to see later, and it just died. Nothing happened.
No kidding.
Yep. It was supposed to be saved to my phone, and said I didn't give it proper settings, and I checked the settings. They were exactly proper. So I think I'm going to change over to Periscope that fast. It's the same thing, but I was playing with that later, and it seemed to work pretty good. So if you'd like to tune into the Big Buck Podcast live and see all the mistakes we make, you can do so. We're going to try it on Periscope next time. A little different avenue here. Don't you think, Dusty?
Yeah, absolutely. It gives us a little more to offer, a little more to put on the plate, and we look forward to seeing what we can do with that.
Yeah, a little something different. I know Mike's been doing it with Up North Journal. That seems to be working out pretty good. Of course, he's a camera guy from the television station, so he knows what he's doing. I have no idea. I just know this audio stuff. But it seems to be working out for him just using the Meerkat, and I think he had the same problem the other day. So we're going to try another competitor to see how that one works. So bye-bye Meerkat. Hello Periscope.
I like it when we get rid of the old and bring in the new.
Yeah, me too. I like cleaning the house a little bit. So tell me if we've got a Chubby Tines tip of the week. We got some great tips from Adam, but you got anything lined up?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to talk a little bit about trail camera placement. It's one of them things that some are starting to get their trail cameras out in the woods, and it's something that I just tinker around with and mess with every year. And, I'm going to pass on something that I made not a huge mistake, but I made a mistake with a mature buck, and it's one that stuck in my mind, and I'm going to pass it along. There's still the white flash cameras out there, and I'm not saying they're bad.
Yep.
And I'm not saying they're great, but there's still people using a white flash camera. And I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to try out the Illuminator from Culver scouting camera.
Yep.
I hung that thing. It's got 40 or 60 LED lights, and it really puts out a flash, and it offers full color night pictures.
Right. And in full disclosure, they are a sponsor of Chubby Tines Outdoors, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, I hung them, and I had a mature buck come into the Illuminator, and it flashed real hard right in his face. Oh, man, I struggled the rest of the season to get a picture of that deer. So what I've done now is I'm hanging them a little higher on a branch that's kind of angling upward, where that you can hang the camera on an angle and actually be above the deer as they're walking through, and that white flash catches them on the walk by.
Gotcha.
Walking under the camera, and versus putting it right in their face. They didn't like that. So I'm suggesting that you take the opportunity and try to hang your cameras up above the deer trails and actually catch the deer walking under it versus walking straight into it.
I like that technique. I've observed that, and it seemed to work quite well. I haven't done it yet, but I have a plan. Absolutely. That's a great tip, man.
Yeah, just something you can try in the woods, and you just never know. You may get a deer that's been skirting you because he's seen that flash of the red light. You get some of them are infrared, and they can see that. Everybody says, "Oh, they can't see that. Can't see that." Well, I've got a ton of pictures, and their reaction when the camera took the picture is they can definitely see that.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question that they can see it.
So and there's still quite a few still using the flash cameras, and just take time and if you got carrying a little 3-step stool or a little ladder with you, where you can climb up to that tree branch that's overhanging.
Yep.
And try a different method. See if it don't change their reaction when they walk under it and when they walk by it.
Right. That's a great idea. I like that. Yeah, it probably won't stun them as much. They might see light, but then they'll like, what was that?
Yeah, it's
not right in their face.
Right. It's not that face-on flash, and even though infrared, it's pretty low light.
Right.
There's still that flicker of light that hits them in the face, and it makes a mature buck. Some of the younger bucks walk right by it. No big deal to them.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So you talking a 5-year-old, 6-year-old buck? They're gonna get a little leery of that, and if it happens repeatedly, you can forget them walking down that trail.
Yep. Might as well hunt somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's a good one, man. We had a donation made this week. Shane Rink just said he wanted to say that he really appreciates us and our show. So, Shane, we can't thank you enough for your donation, and that helps us keep this thing going. So, we've had several donations over the last couple of weeks, and if you would like to donate as well, there are 2 ways you could do it. You can pledge or donate. Donate is just straight up. Pledge is just saying you're going to give so much per future episode. And the donation page is www.bigbuckregistry.com/donate. And the pledge page, and you can see a whole write-up about what our mission is there at www.bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. So thanks again to all the donations and donators that we've had over the last several weeks.
Absolutely. We can't thank you enough. And it just helps us get along with some of the costs of the show. And man, much appreciated.
Yep. Future shows coming up. I just want to make a mention. We're going to have Dan Bergeron on. We talked a little bit with Adam. He's going to sit here, and we're going to talk about the fish and game department, how it gets funded. They're struggling right now. They're hurting for some money, and they're waiting for some bills to pass. But we've also got that other issue with the 12 deer that died in New Hampshire over on the seacoast due to feeding. So we're going to get into that a little bit deeper and see what Fish and Game has to say about that, and see if we can stir up some different opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, the Fish and Game will give us some factual information on issues of that nature.
Yep. And there's always antithesis. Both sides have different opinions, and I'm leaning towards one. Kind of siding with Fish and Game on this one, but you never know. So we'll see what we get into.
Yeah, Jay, if the listeners could take a moment to check out the Outdoor Podcast channel on iTunes, or you can also go to outdoorpodcastchannel.com. It's a new channel released, and it's podcast 7 days a week. New show airs every day.
That is pretty cool. The Outdoor Podcast channel, we joined forces with a bunch of great outdoor podcasters, and so far so good, man. It's been ranking high in the charts. It's brand new. But it is awesome. If you're a big outdoor podcast enthusiast and you need something new to listen to every day as you go to work, and granted, these are all somewhere between 35 and hour and 15 minutes long. It's probably a decent commuting hour, half of it on the way in, half of it on the way home, something like that. But, boy, you can get your fix pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree to that. And, there's, like I said, there's 7 other podcasters besides us that are right there, and it's something different every day. It's pretty unique.
Yep, exactly. And you can also find us on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We didn't join forces with them, but we agreed to let them use our feed, so they've got us featured over there. I think we are on Saturdays and Sundays. And we are also on the PRX Exchange, the Public Radio Exchange, if you ever want to check that out. A little different format, not same show, just looks a little different on their page, and it's the purpose of it is that we can be seen by the public radio stations all across the country that are owned by public radio or conglomerates of it. And that's over at bigbuckregistry.com/PRX. I think that's it, man. I think we just got to wrap it up.
Awesome. Yeah, great show. And thanks to Adam for joining us. And, if you want to reach out to me, you can send me an email at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can also check me out at Chubby Tines Outdoors right on Facebook. Just go to the search bar, type in Chubby Tines Outdoors. And, Jay, how can the folks reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Yeah. First and foremost, if you're listening to this show as we speak right now, if you could, pause that station right there. Pause that player. And if you're in iTunes, go search for this podcast. Hit the review link and leave a review for this show. I want to know how we're doing. It's the only way we can possibly make this better, because if you don't leave us a review, we're going to assume we're doing it perfect. And I know we're not perfect. Right, Dusty?
Yeah, absolutely not. It's we're human beings like anybody else, and we definitely want to hear your input on what you think of the sound quality, and shoot us a message also about maybe a guest that we'd like to hear on the show. We definitely like the reviews on iTunes. It's great for us. And, man, we really appreciate everybody's input.
Yeah, and, we take those things to heart. Or shoot us an email, feedback at bigbuckregistry.com. We take those seriously. I've literally gotten a message, and if you leave a phone number, I'm calling them within 5 minutes because I take it that seriously over here. I want to make sure we're producing the highest quality show that you can listen to with the highest quality audio that we can achieve. So if you've got any issues at all, just let us know. We want to fix it just as much as you want it fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. We honor your opinion.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than a listener's opinion, in my opinion, really. If you'd like to reach out to us on our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/BigBuckRegistry. We're also on Twitter, twitter.com/BigBuckRegistry. We're on Instagram now. I haven't been playing on that much this week, but certainly would invite you to come hang out with us over there. That's bigbuckregistry.com/Instagram. And next week, check us out on Periscope. So if you have an iDevice and a Twitter account, you can actually follow us on Twitter, and it'll announce that we're about to go live on Periscope. And then you can download the app. You might want to get prearranged downloading so you don't have to do it during show hours. And if you'd like to shoot us an email, it's Jay or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com, as you just mentioned. Give us a call at 724-613-2825. And I think that's it, except for if you have a big buck that you shot and you'd like us to make you famous for a day and post it on our 150,000 plus followers on our Facebook page, all you got to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck and read all the instructions right there. And I believe that is it.
Big buck everywhere, a big buck.
You know what? I thought of one last thing. If you would like to sponsor this show, our media package is hot off the press. You've reviewed that, Dusty.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing for a business opportunity.
It is. It's very reasonably priced, right with market standards. You probably would be shocked at how cheap you can affordably get some great coverage and sponsor this show. So if you're interested in talking to us about that, go to bigbuckregistry.com/sponsor. And you can read all about our stats and all of the downloads and who listens to us and what kind of car they're going to buy next and all that kind of good stuff. It's fascinating, by the way, who our audience is.
Yeah, great audience, though, and we really appreciate everybody tuning in every week.
Yes, absolutely. Cannot thank you enough for tuning in. Well, man, I think that's a wrap. I think we got to end the show, as sad as that is.
It is very sad.
I hate this part of the show.
You know, there's always next week, Jake.
There's always next week, but I always hate ending on a topic because I feel like there's so much more to cover every single week. But that's why they make part 2 of all these shows, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.